Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to talk about foreigners. We don't like foreigners very much. We've got to put up with the Welsh, we've got to put the Scots and the people of Northern Ireland. I mean, and real foreigners, not really. We don't want to do with them. And our government is doing a great job in doing everything possible to make it impossible for them to come here, either as workers or as asylum seekers. I mean, they're really concentrating, because this is very popular policy. We've got people in the red wall seats, people who read things like the Daily Express and the Daily Mail, and people who go to focus groups. So they all don't like foreigners, and so the government is doing everything possible to make it very, very difficult for foreigners. Now, before Brexit, when we were members of the EU, we could go and live and work anywhere in the EU. Our young people could travel all over and get experience and so on. We could buy property in the EU if we wanted to. We could retire to the EU. Lots of people went and retired to Spain. And it was all very nice. It was a terrific market, terrific experience, especially for people starting out in life and so on. You could start businesses in Europe if you wanted to. But there was one big drawback with it, one big problem, and the problem was that it was reciprocal. And these Europeans, these foreigners, were able to come to the UK and to work and do whatever they like, and that we just couldn't have that. And it was one of the main reasons why we had to leave the EU. It was called freedom of movement, and was just unacceptable. And not only that, as people pointed out at the time, it was unfair. It was unfair that people in the EU should have an advantage of being able to come here without restrictions, unlike people in, say, Papua New Guinea or Venezuela, who had to go through much more, all sorts of procedures before they could actually come here. So we left, and as a result of leaving, a lot of people who'd come here to work as nurses and doctors, and worked in care homes, and worked in hospitality and construction and all sorts of other industries, who'd come from the EU, they all went home, and they had a look at the new restrictions, the new requirements for coming back, and they said, well, sod this, we won't bother. And so very few of them came back. I mean, some stayed because perhaps they had long-term contracts, or they got married and who knows what. So some stayed, but an awful lot of them went back. And so we found we had terrific sort of shortages, and particularly in the health service, terrible shortages of nurses and doctors and so on. And the government started to panic a bit, and so they thought, we're going to have to try and get somebody to replace them. So they started advertising in places like Nigeria and Bangladesh and India and Pakistan for people to come here. Now, they made it quite clear from the start they didn't want any ordinary workers. They don't want any people doing menial jobs. If you were doing unskilled work, we didn't want any. That almost impossible for them to come, because there was a minimal threshold that you had to earn £29,000 before you're allowed to come here. And so we ended up keeping all the unskilled jobs for our own young people. And so when people come out of schools and universities, and instead of being wanted to be Instagram influencers and England footballers, they all had to accept the fact that there were lots of jobs for labourers and cleaners and farm workers and assembly line workers and bouncers, and all these sort of jobs that they didn't want to do. So anyway, the government said, OK, we'll let these foreigners come here, and the conditions were that they had to get a job before they came here. Well, with the NHS, that was no problem. They'd got a job, and if they weren't going to be working for a government department, then they'd have to. They could only get a job from somebody who was actually registered with the Home Office in order to and had the authority to offer jobs. And the conditions were that the job had to earn them £29,000 a year, and they had to pay various fees. For example, they had to pay an application fee. This was somewhere between £719 and £1,500, say an average of £1,000. They then had to agree to pay healthcare surcharge that was usually about £1,035 a year for in whatever time they were here, and they had to have £1,270 to show that they could support themselves in the event that they weren't getting their wages or whatever, and they had to show that they could speak English. And they probably had to use an agent in order to get all this application done. And I think there have already been examples of agents exploiting people. And so all in all, it was going to cost them £5,000 or something to come here and work. Now, for a lot of people in places like India and Pakistan and Nigeria, this was an opportunity to move the entire family to the UK. And so lots and lots of people came and they brought their families with them, brought their wives or husbands and children. And the effect of all this was that immigration went through the roof. We take back control. The Europeans had gone home, but 1.2 million people came to the UK in the year ended June 23. And there was suddenly panic. The government thought, this wasn't what was meant to happen. And they thought, what can you do about this? All these people coming, can't have that. And so what they decided to do in order to stop all these people coming with their families was to say, you can't bring any dependents anymore. A lot of the people, students, a student would finish university, want to do a PhD or something, and they bring their husband and children, or they bring their wife and children. That was all put a stop to. And so the situation at the moment is that anyone wanting to come in and work here from far away, they have to come on their own. They have to abandon their family for perhaps 5 years. They have to pay all these fees and have to get someone to invite them, to give them a job, and to show they can speak English. And then they'll come to the UK, where they'll be treated really as rather inferior because they're foreigners, and eventually they'll get sent home again. The time's up; they have to go home, and so they'll miss their children grow up and whatever. And so, in other words, it's been made as uninviting as possible, and people are not going to come. People simply aren't. For example, a lot of these people that came, of the 1.2 million that came in the year ended June 23, a lot of them are students, and they're going to say, we'll go somewhere else. We're going to study somewhere else where we can take our dependents. And the consequence of that is that universities are going to have fewer foreign students, and a lot of universities depend very much on foreign students because they pay much higher fees. A lot of universities actually lose money on their UK students, but make it up on foreign students. So there'll be fewer of them, and also if these people don't come, we're going to continue to have shortages in the health service and everywhere else as well, because we're short of so many workers in so many different areas. It's just going to make things worse. And it seems to be almost madness that you make it impossible for unskilled workers to come. You then make it very difficult for skilled workers to come, and then you make it almost impossible for skilled workers to come. And you wonder how that's going to solve our problems. And when it comes to immigration, most of Western Europe, like Japan, even China, for example, desperately short of workers because we're an ageing population. People are having fewer children, we're getting older, we're living longer. It costs more and more to look after old people because medicine is generally getting more expensive. And it's madness to shut off, absolutely block off anyone coming to the country to help, to work. But that's what the Daily Express readers want. They don't want foreigners here. They don't want foreigners coming taking our jobs. They don't want foreigners coming taking our jobs digging potatoes at 6 o'clock on a wet morning in Lincolnshire, or working in care homes, wiping old ladies' bottoms. They don't want that. No. They don't want foreigners coming to do those sort of jobs. Any jobs. It's just, we're in such a mess to do something quite so stupid, to make it virtually impossible for people to come and work here, seems to me to be absolute madness. Now, the other source of people coming to this country is asylum seekers. And this is something the government is obsessed with. It's Sunak's, one of his 5 pledges is sending stopping the boats, isn't it? People only come on boats because there's no other way of coming. But anyway, it's taken up so much time, so much energy. Do you know the number of people that come across the channel in boats? It was 1.2 million came legally with visas, and it was 30,000 across the channel. That's less than 3% of asylum seekers are people coming across the channel. A tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. And yet that has been the absolute focus of immigration policy for the last year, in Sunak's desperate attempt to try and revive some popularity by getting some planes going to Rwanda, which is never going to happen anyway. But in terms of how difficult it is to get to claim asylum in this country, every civilized country says that they will provide sanctuary to people who are in genuine danger and fear and risk of life and limb. But this is something I found on a human rights website a couple of days ago, and I'll read it to you. It says, the government makes it very difficult for people to enter the United Kingdom to claim asylum. This is especially so after the government introduced a law called the Nationality and Borders Act of 2022. I think that was Braverman's initiative. If you are in danger in your country of origin or residence and you want the UK to grant you international protection, you can claim asylum when you are in the UK. Perfectly simple. Once you're in the UK, you can claim asylum. However, it is not possible to claim asylum from outside the UK, and there is no visa which allows people to enter the UK in order to claim asylum. I mean, that can't be clearer. When you're in the UK, you can claim asylum, but you can't come to the UK to claim asylum. This means that most people have no choice but to enter the UK without permission. This is why there are all the boats. And how many people have been coming across in lorries in all the last 3 years when we've not been checking anything coming into the country? It's unfair, it's unreasonable, it's selfish. Other countries are having to take asylum seekers. No one's saying for one moment, as I've said so many times before, that you should just open up your borders. You should have a system whereby people can apply for asylum in a foreign country, and then their application can be processed there before they come here. But to have no way of coming to this country except coming across the channel and risking drowning and then being stuck in some sort of second-rate accommodation for a year or two whilst the Home Office moves your papers around is it's just utterly chaotic and crazy and stupid. And we're being told all the time about how much it costs us, all these asylum seekers. I mean, there are more than 100,000 out there who are in five-star hotels or waiting, and we're giving them all this money and all this help and so on. They actually get, whilst they're waiting, they get £6.43 a day. And all these people want to do is to work. They're sitting around doing nothing for maybe a year or more, doing nothing. A lot of them, no doubt, amongst all this 100,000, there'll be doctors, there'll be nurses, there'll be all sorts of people with different skills who could contribute to the economy, could actually earn money and pay their way. We could make a profit out of these people whilst they're waiting, because they're all eventually, almost all of them will eventually get permission to remain. But no, they just sit there and wait and do nothing. And we have to fork out a fortune to keep them, to accommodate them. There's a firm in Kent, it's called Clear Springs Ready Homes. It belongs to a guy who previously ran caravan parks. And in the year ended January 2020, his company made a profit of £796,000, providing accommodation for asylum seekers. £796,000 profit. 3 years later, this accounts 31st of January 2023, he made a profit of £62 million profit accommodating asylum seekers. And the government will tell you how much it's costing. That's why we've got to deal with this problem. We've got to send them to Rwanda because it's costing so much to keep them. How stupid do these people think we are? How stupid. And finally, I just want to end on something about James Cleverly, because I think he was involved in the decision to stop people being able to bring their relatives when they come here to work. Now, about 3 years ago, a guy called David Neal was appointed as Chief Inspector of Borders. His idea was to make sure the borders were all tight and well guarded and so on. And he produced about 15 reports over a space of 3 years. And there was no response, nothing happened, there was no action taken on any of these reports, apparently. And so in the end he got very frustrated, and he spoke to one of the newspapers, he spoke to the Times about the state of things regarding our borders and so on. And he said the following. He said that at London City Airport there are certain flights which are classified as high risk. And of those flights, this is on private planes, only 21% were being inspected. In other words, 79% of private planes coming into this country via London City Airport, high risk planes, were not being checked at all. No passport checks, no checks of goods or whatever. He also told the Times that the Home Office had issued 275 work visas to a care home didn't exist. And they also issued 1,234 work visas to a company that had 4 employees. In other words, it's not working. It's chaos. It's just a mess. Now, James cleverly, stupidly, instead of saying, well, this is really serious, we must sort this out, must fix this, and I'm very concerned about it. No, what did he do? He sacked the Chief Inspector of Borders. He's gone. Whether any action's been taken regarding what he discovered, who knows? It's just such a mess. I don't suppose the Home Office is any worse than any other government department. I mean, it's just chaos everywhere. It's chaos, incompetence, stupidity. But this attitude towards foreigners, that we have to keep foreigners out, just to appease people who read the Daily Express. Foreigners over the years have contributed so much to this country. If we go back far enough, so we're all foreigners. But it's just so important. The world is so small these days. We've left the EU, okay, but it's so important that we all work together. That we can work in different places, and we can move around, and we can help each other, and all advance together. If we just say no, we're going to be like North Korea. We want to be separate from everybody else. We don't want any foreigners coming here. It's absolute utter madness, and it's utterly irresponsible, and it's stupid. But that's it. That's government policy. Because that, they think, will get them re-elected. Anyhow, that's what I think about it. If you've watched this far, thank you very much as always. And until next time, thanks again, and bye for now.